friends and familiars. This is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily, and I'm here with Mitzi Peirone, the writer, or co-writer and director of the upcoming film St. Claire, which is premiering at FrightFest UK on August 25th, with a digital release to be announced later. Mitzi, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, it's our pleasure, and I know we don't have all the time in the world, so I'll jump right into the questions. But my first one is, how did you first become involved with the St. Clair project?
Definitely. Was um I was asked to take a look at the script back in 2020 actually. But I was stuck in Italy due to the pandemic. I work in the US, but I'm an immigrant there. I got my green card last year, and so during the pandemic, thank you. During the pandemic, I was forced to stay at home in Italy, which was lovely, but at the same time, it forbade me from working, which was really hard. It was a difficult time for a lot of people in the entertainment industry, and not I wasn't able to take it on. And so then at the end of 2021, a new version of the script penned by Guinevere Turner came to me. And I thought there were a lot of compelling elements, but the producers specifically asked me to take it to a place where Bella Thorne would attach. And Bella is a friend of mine, and we wanted to work together. We actually had a sci-fi in the making before the pandemic. It fell apart. 2020, again, difficult year, but here we are. And knowing Bella and knowing what she was seeking, and also bringing a certain degree, I feel like, of European background to the script, I feel like it really worked, because the script had very clever ideas of specifically working around a character that was like a female version of Dexter, or, female American Psycho type of character. But I didn't feel like her psychological and philosophical upbringing was really shining in the book. And so I thought, she's at Catholic school, what is the best way for me to approach the foundation of this character? Like what makes somebody commit murder and think that they can get away with it and still feel righteous about it? I became fascinated with the idea of this ethical and moral dichotomy that the character has to face. In a sense, she, like Joan of Arc, is doing something that is despicable objectively, but she's doing it, in her opinion, for the greater good. So that does pose a great question of societal infrastructures and how we relate to law and how we relate to authority. Do we trust the authority to protect all of us? And what about our marginalized groups, including women? What if nobody stands up for them? What point is it right to go against standard, law, legal structures, if what we feel is happening is wrong, and we feel compelled to go against it? And what does that look like? Because her path is definitely a solitary path, full of sacrifice and full of pain and full of loss and full of failures. And ultimately, she realizes that if she is to eradicate that evil from the world, and she has to become the evil itself to do so, because she is an assassin at the end of the day, will her time come as well? And so all of these ideas were, just boiling up in my head. And I thought, this is so similar to what I guess a martyr, or, a saint in the making would be thinking of. I am ready to die for this cause, even if I end up being painted as a villain, even if nobody understands me, even if I have to pay the final price for it. And then I was thinking about, Joan of Arc has like so much incredible literature around her persona. The flames around me, no, the flames inside of me are greater than the flames around me. I mean, that's inspirational, metaphorically speaking, of course. I think that moral clarity has become a not so, just, I don't know if it's valued anymore. And I think that when you have a character or a person that values moral clarity, in a sense, it frees you from any kind of fear, whether it be fear of rejection, fear of solitude, of failure, of being misunderstood, and ultimately of death. So I had high ambitions of creating a character that had that gravitas, and at the same time, that was still like fun and exciting to watch a young woman take matter into her own hands and take no for an answer. No, don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, I think the way you portrayed Bella in the film especially does come off very much like a vigilante, but for the
Hmm.
right moment in time where she's defending kind of she's responding to the lack of response, I guess, that we see from law enforcement and other parts of society that don't believe women and
Hmm.
don't see these kind of situations through that they're logical and justice-based conclusions. So it definitely comes through that there's a lot of this emphasis on not just the martyrdom, but also the anti-hero element of what she's doing is wrong, but it's inspired by a reason that actually matters. And I'm curious to know how familiar you were with Don Roth's original novel before going into the script. Had you read it before, or were you going into kind of blind? And did you work with Don at all to
I
kind of with the script, or just kind of used it as a reference point?
I because the novel's called Claire at 16, myself being a 32-year-old woman, it wasn't necessarily on my radar. But
Right.
when I read it, I found a lot of elements that I resonated with. I am myself a Catholic school girl, so that definitely had an influence on my work. I feel like in my first feature as well, Braid, it's despite the fact that it has nothing to do with spirituality or religion, it is imbued with religious iconography and a way the portraying women that's very, almost like in a Renaissance painting. And that I think it's still present in St. Clare. What I enjoyed about taking some of that into, I guess my love for art history and my knowledge of Renaissance paintings and European art, I feel like that translated very well into St. Clare because of the dichotomy that I was speaking of earlier. This moral ethical dichotomy that is very well translated through the chiaroscuro use of lighting. So a lot of times we framed Bella and also the younger version of her, young Claire, with this very distinct, split between divide between good and evil, light and dark. I think that all of that came together really well, and Don had laid the foundations for it, and he allowed me full freedom, quite frankly, to do what I felt was right with the script. I knew that I had to graduate it to Claire not being 16, but
Right.
22, 23, which was, one of the biggest challenges because Claire 16 takes place in high school. So the best I could do was move it to university. If I had to remove the school element, I would have had to completely rewrite the entire script, and I didn't feel like doing it. So I have a great deal of respect for writers. I have a great deal of respect for Don, and he reached out to me and he told me the second that I saw the trailer for Braid, or I watched the film Braid, I don't remember. He said, I knew that you were the one that would have made this happen, because they had other
That's
writers and other
awesome.
directors attached for 3 years. And it felt great to have that kind of support. And I sent him the first draft he allowed me to free fall, but I sent him immediately the first draft being like, I want you to know that this is the direction that I'm taking this into. And Don's incredible because he's so selfless. He even told me some scenes you elevated, you raised the stakes. And of course there's others that maybe he didn't foresee, like the Joan of Arc of it all. Of course that's something that I brought to the table, or the Renaissance paintings, or I guess I have the advantage of having been a 16 or 23-year-old girl. So that's
Right.
also comes with the territory. Like I have a little bit more of, knowledge into that. But working with Dawn was really wonderful, truly.
Yeah, I love what you said about the Renaissance influence because you can see, especially in some of the flashback scenes, there's one that sticks out in my head where um, Claire is, having a flashback to that pivotal moment in her. I don't want to give it away too much for folks seeing the film, but everything else goes red around her except for a handful of things like the leaves around her, and it's a really striking image. So I definitely notice some of that kind of European sensibility about bringing art house into the mainstream and giving that visual flair.
Mhm.
And I'm, given this as your second feature, you had such a breakout with Braid. I'm curious to know what lessons that you learned from Braid you were able to apply to this film, St. Clair.
So I'm a believer that if you're put in front of a challenge, it's because you're able to handle it. St. Clair was a challenge. We shot it in 15 days,
Wow.
and
Wow.
It's no secret. It's no secret. We shot it in 15 days. If that had been my first feature, I don't know what would have happened. So what I'm trying to say is that Braid was the perfect first feature film experience for me because I was in a single location mostly. We had other locations, but we were mostly in this like gorgeous house. No matter where you point the camera, it's beautiful objectively. And you know, I had the three leads to work with at all times, and there was a very like adult summer camp, Renaissance of the arts feel to the making of Braid. St. Clair was challenging. There was like an intellectual property that I had to respect. I couldn't write whatever I wanted. I had to, and I wanted to respect. We had pre-distribution deals, which meant that you know, I had studio execs telling me, giving me directions and telling me we need the film needs to be within 90 minutes, for instance, or we want this like bit of love story. I'm just making examples, but I definitely
Sure.
had, you know, I had to share the creative control a little bit, which is something that I wasn't used to on Braid because we raised funds for cryptocurrency. I was the executive producer. If I said I wanted 200K on costumes, that was it. And instead I didn't have the same type of flexibility or the same type of freedom. Then because of scheduling conflicts, we end up shooting. The word comes through that it's going to be 15 days. There's no wiggle room around it. And you know, during pre-production, I had several panic attacks. I'm not gonna lie about that because I felt like this was going to somehow compromise too much what I wanted out of the film, especially coming from Braid. But it, what I learned from Braid was that this is gonna sound cheesy, but I realized that it was worth investing in the visions that I had, the imagination that I have, the care for art and literature that I have, everything that makes my cinema, I guess, and like the way that I approach filmmaking, it was worth putting in the years. It was worth sacrificing other things. It was worth financial insecurity, our years spent without knowing how to even answer what is it that you do for a living, because like before, you know, I
Right.
was like whatever, modeling, and then trying to like, I don't know, not die in New York City. And so there's definitely it's hard work to believe in yourself. It is
Yeah.
really hard work to just surrender to the fact that perhaps you are worth the investment. And that was my big challenge in my 20s, which I think is a lot of people's challenge in their 20s. And Braid was, I never thought we would have gotten into Tribeca when I made that film. I never thought it would have been worldwide distribution and everything that came with it. The beauty of Braid was that I literally just did it like profoundly from the bottom of my heart. And it's a beautiful thing that not a lot of filmmakers get to do, not a lot of people get to do. And I didn't realize how privileged I had been on that first film because I had no terms of comparison. So
Right.
then we're making St. Clair, and I'm getting a taste of like, oh, this is like a studio film. Like I'm being told things, you know, and so yeah, it was during pre-production. I just like had this moment where I was like, Mitzi, the dream does not knock on the dreamer's door if the dreamer cannot open the door. I was like, I have to have a breakthrough. Like I'm forcing myself into a breakthrough because otherwise I'm not going to be able to make this. And I told myself, if you're here, it's because you can make it and you have to trust yourself. And so my DP and I, Luca Bazzelli, we did the first shot list from day one. It was 50 setups, and we turned it into the producers, and they're like, you guys are not going to be able to make this. Like, you got to get it down to 25. Like, there's just no way. We're shooting 10 pages a day instead of like the cozy 3 pages a day. It was like 9. A good day was 7 pages a
Right.
day.
My goodness.
And it was crazy. It was crazy, but it's insane what can be achieved when everybody treats each other with respect and kindness, which is something that came up in another interview. I was like, you know what? I think that we ran a logistically tight but very emotionally cozy ship in the sense that a lot of there was just no room for ego. We just if somebody told me Mitzi like and when one of my actors would tell me I don't connect with this line, it's poorly written. I would never be like, ah, how dare you? Or like, no, you're going to say it because I need to hear it. And then I'll know. No, no, I was like, let's make it better right away. No time to waste. And so sometimes you know, the things that we dread can end up being our salvation. It's kind of like what I figured out. I was like, you know, I don't have a lot of time, but this could be used to my advantage. And we were doing these insane shot lists. We were basically told you're never going to be able to make it. And we put our heart and souls into it. And on day one, we did 68 setups.
Holy smokes. Well, Mitzi, that is an insane shooting schedule. And I'm so glad you made it out of it on the other side with not only a great
Thank you.
film, but also yourself intact. So
Thank you.
I know we're up on our time, but I just want to remind everyone watching this that, you know, please, if you're at Fright Fest this year, make sure to go check out St. Clair. It's going to be premiering on August 25th. If you can't make it to Fright Fest, please make sure to keep an eye out. We'll be, of course, posting news about digital and theatrical video releases. But Mitzi, I just want to thank you so much for the time with the interview, and also congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much. This was lovely. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.